I was 24 when a woman I was dating asked me a question that stopped me cold. We were lying in bed, and she turned to me and said, "Why do you always seem so desperate for this? Like you're running from something." I laughed it off, made some joke about male biology. But the truth is, her question haunted me for weeks, because she was right. I was running from something. And it wasn't until I discovered Otto Rank's work on separation psychology that I understood what. Here's what Rank discovered that most people never learn. Men don't pursue sex primarily for pleasure. They pursue it as a psychological solution to a terror they can't name. And once you understand the 5 ways this manifests, you'll never look at male behavior the same way again. That woman was seeing something I couldn't see in myself. And what I'm about to share with you is what I wish I'd understood back then. Let's dive into the psychology that explains everything. The first way men seek sex is the most fundamental. As an escape from the terror of being separate. Otto Rank believed that human beings are traumatized by separation from the moment of birth. You go from complete union with another being to suddenly being alone, isolated, cut off. And men spend their entire lives unconsciously trying to return to that state of merger. Now here's where it gets specific to male psychology. Society teaches men that they must be independent, self-sufficient, strong, alone. Man up. Stand on your own. Don't need anyone. But psychologically, this creates an unbearable tension. Men are taught to be separate, while simultaneously being terrified of separateness. And sex becomes the only socially acceptable way for men to temporarily dissolve those boundaries. For a few minutes, you're not alone anymore. You're merged with another person. The walls come down. This is why some men become almost addicted to the pursuit. It's not about the physical sensation. It's about the brief psychological relief from isolation. Have you ever noticed how a man can seem completely driven to be intimate, but the moment it's over, he withdraws? That's not cruelty. That's the separation anxiety returning the moment the merger ends. He was never seeking you. He was seeking temporary escape from himself. But it gets more complex. The second way men seek sex is as proof that they exist, that they matter. Let me paint you a picture. A man goes through his day feeling invisible. His boss barely acknowledges him. His friends are busy. He scrolls through social media, seeing everyone else's highlight reel. He feels like a ghost moving through the world. But then a woman desires him sexually. Suddenly he's real. He matters. He exists. Ranks understood that one of our deepest psychological needs is to be affirmed by another consciousness. We need someone else to see us, to choose us, to confirm that we're actually here. And for many men, sexual desire from a woman becomes the primary, sometimes the only, form of validation they receive. Think about it. Men aren't complimented on their appearance. They're not told they're beautiful. They don't receive emotional validation from friends. They're taught that needing validation is weakness. So where does that need go? It gets channeled into sexuality. A woman's desire becomes the mirror that reflects back. You exist. You matter. You're wanted. This is why rejection can feel so devastating to men. It's not just about not getting sex. It's about having your existence negated. Have you ever been with a man who seemed to need constant reassurance of your desire? Who couldn't just relax into intimacy, but always seemed to be performing, seeking confirmation? That's not ego. That's existential insecurity. He's using your desire to prove to himself that he's real. And here's the uncomfortable question. Can you truly be intimate with someone who's using you as a mirror? There's more. The third way men seek sex is perhaps the most unconscious, as a defense against death. Rank spent years studying how humans deal with mortality, and he discovered that sex and death are psychologically intertwined. On the most basic level, sex is about creating life. It's the one act that literally defeats death by producing new life. But it's more than biology. In the moment of sexual experience, you feel intensely alive. Every sensation is heightened. You're completely present. You're not thinking about mortality. You're lost in vitality. For men specifically, this becomes a way to reassure themselves that they're still vital, still potent, still alive. This is especially true as men age and become more aware of their declining physical power. Notice how men often become more sexually driven during midlife. That's not just testosterone. That's death anxiety. It's a psychological attempt to prove they're still vital, still capable of creating life, still far from death. This is also why some men pursue multiple partners. It's not actually about variety or conquest. It's about repeatedly proving their aliveness, their potency, their distance from death. Every conquest is a symbolic victory over mortality. Every new experience of desire is evidence they're still vital. But like all death denial, it doesn't work. The anxiety returns. So the pursuit begins again. Think about the men you've known who seem driven, almost compulsively, toward sexual experiences. What if it wasn't about you at all? What if they were running from the void? The fourth way men seek sex is as proof of their masculinity itself. Here's what Rank understood about identity. We don't just have identities. We perform them constantly to convince ourselves they're real. And for men, sexuality becomes the ultimate performance of masculinity. Real men are sexual. Real men pursue women. Real men have high desire and frequent experiences. This creates an exhausting psychological trap. A man must constantly prove his masculinity through sexual pursuit and performance, or risk feeling like he's not a real man at all. I remember times in my 20s when I pursued sex, not because I actually wanted it, but because I felt like I was supposed to want it. Like if I didn't, something was wrong with me. I was performing masculinity, not experiencing desire. Ranks would say this is the counter-will in action. You're doing something not because it comes from your authentic self, but because you're trying to meet an external standard. This is why so many men struggle with performance anxiety. The very thing they're using to prove their masculinity becomes the thing that threatens it. It's also why many men can't be vulnerable during intimacy. Vulnerability would break the masculine performance. So they stay in a role even during what should be the most authentic moments. If you've ever been with a man who seemed more focused on performing than connecting, he wasn't necessarily being selfish. He was terrified of failing at being a man. But here's what Rank would ask. If you're performing masculinity during sex, are you actually having sex? Or are you just acting out a script? The fifth way men seek sex is the most psychologically deep, as an unconscious attempt to return to the mother. Now, before this sounds too Freudian, let me be clear. Ranks broke away from Freud specifically because he saw this differently. For Rank, the mother represents the original state of union, that perfect merger before birth, before separation, before the terror of aloneness began. And many men unconsciously seek that feeling of being completely held, completely safe, completely merged, through physical intimacy with women. This is why some men become almost childlike after sex. They want to be held. They want to be cared for. They become vulnerable in a way they never are otherwise. They're not seeking a sexual partner in those moments. They're seeking the lost mother, that original caretaker who made them feel completely safe. This also explains why some men choose partners who mother them, or why they struggle with women who are both sexual and nurturing. The psychological categories get confused. I've watched men, including myself, seek out physical intimacy when what we really wanted was to be held, to be soothed, to return to that feeling of safety. But sex can't actually provide that, because the original union is lost forever. You can't go back. You can only go forward into mature individuation. So men keep seeking, keep pursuing, keep trying to find that feeling. In bars, in apps, in affairs, in pornography. Always searching for the mother who no longer exists. This isn't pathological. It's profoundly human. We're all seeking the lost union in our own ways. But Rank would say, until you accept the loss, until you grieve the separation, you'll keep using other people as substitutes for something they can never be. So there they are. The 5 ways men seek sex according to separation psychology. Escape from separateness. Validation of existence. Conquest of death anxiety. Performance of masculinity. Search for the lost mother. Notice what's missing from this list. Actual connection. Genuine intimacy. Real presence with another person. Because according to Rank, most of what we call intimacy is actually avoidance. We use other people's bodies to run from our own psychology. But here's the good news. Understanding these patterns is the first step towards something real. If you're a man watching this, ask yourself, are you seeking sex or seeking escape? Are you connecting or performing? And if you're trying to understand the men in your life, This is what's often happening beneath the surface. It doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it might explain the desperation, the withdrawal, the confusion. Real intimacy requires accepting your separateness first. You have to be a complete individual before you can truly meet another individual. The pursuit ends when you stop running, and that's when real connection becomes possible. If this changed how you see male psychology, subscribe for more deep dives into what really drives human behavior. Because understanding the psychology might be the key to finally having real intimacy. Thanks for watching.